When the global pandemic hit and many of our social gathering places shut down, the Chrysler Museum was no exception. Upcoming exhibitions were placed on hold, leaving the staff to ponder what to do next.
We just started thinking, well, what can we do with our own collection that focuses on this feeling that we're all confronting, the sense of isolation, the sense of confusion, and this real desire to be with people.
Seth Feeman is Deputy Director for Art and Interpretation and the Curator of Photography at the Chrysler. He says their first thought was to plan a show about community. Then came the death of George Floyd.
COVID's part of the story, but also justice is a part of the story, and how communities can engage in the democratic process, sometimes through protest, sometimes through voting.
The collection features various pieces that address purpose, love, celebration, and justice.
There are things like historic paintings, there are glass works, there are carved marble, and things all that have to do with the theme of community. But my area of interest in particular is the photographs, and there's a large section of photographs that have to do with protests in the 50s and 60s. Oh gosh, there are so many incredible images, and there really are. There's one image in particular that is a Danny Lyon photograph that shows a Nick Field photographer, and he was at a protest in Maryland. I believe it was a George Wallace talk that was being given, and Snick went out to protest it, and there's an image of protesters who are all sitting, and they're being confronted by a line of National Guardsmen who are all wearing gas masks. They've got bayonets out, and they've picked him up out of the crowd, and they're pulling him, and you can see him sort of being pulled out from a seated position, someone who represents the press being pulled into the fray. And I think it's a pretty stark image and not a totally unfamiliar one to our contemporary moment.
Feeman says they've deliberately expanded the exhibition to include images of musicians and athletes who were either part of the civil rights movement or who broke the color barrier.
There's one photograph by Ernest Withers, and it is an image from 1948, 49, somewhere around then, and it depicts Ernie Banks, Larry Doby, and Jackie Robinson. And what's interesting to me about the image is that these are icons of baseball who, at various levels, all crossed the color line. They became some of the first players to integrate different leagues. But what's interesting is that they're all in a dugout together, and then behind them are people in the stands, and it's all African-American watchers who are there for the game. And what it reminds us is that even at this moment when the leagues are starting to integrate, the stands weren't necessarily integrated.
The Come Together exhibit would not be complete without giving the community an opportunity to be involved. And they're asking you to share your photographs.
When I first started thinking about this, I was really motivated by the images that I saw, and they're really incredible photographs coming out of Richmond, particularly the demonstrations at Lost Cause Monument to take them down. And I thought, we've got to get these on the wall. We've got to show people these images. I've seen them on a screen, but they need to be bigger and shared more widely.
Feeman says they're not restricting submissions to recent protests, but the number of photos you can upload is limited to 10.
There's also an email address there if there are any questions that come up along the way.
Come Together Right Now, The Art of Gathering, runs October 11th through January 3rd. And for those uncomfortable with being inside the building, some Norfolk neighborhoods will become living art galleries where you can see reproductions of several pieces of art from the display. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.